All right, last but not least is the posture section of the measurement page. Keep in mind that some of the language on this page may change over time. If there's any questions about changes to the language or additions to this section, feel free to reach out and ask about them. What this section aims to accomplish is it compiles some of the more complicated body measurements and applies them to the relevant way that a person's body is shaped that impacts how those measurements relate to each other. So if somebody's got very forward front shoulders, instead of measuring the back shoulder, front shoulder individually, there are posture settings that you can kind of eyeball how the client stands and apply those to the measurements that are being used to affect fabric distributions. So this section will generally not add or remove fabric anywhere versus your measurements. It'll just redistribute. So again, the front shoulder example, someone with a very forward front shoulder will have less fabric in the front than in the back. The way to use this page is go in order. You can click on the name front shoulder to get a small diagram to explain what's happening, and then click the drop down and select the option that you'd like. It's that simple for most of these. If you leave them blank, the default will be regular, so you'll see that this one has a scale from very backward to very forward. If you leave it blank or choose regular, it will be regular or neutral. And that goes for all of these. If there's a yes or no option, like this one where it's a prominent shoulder blade, either yes or no. If you leave it blank, it'll be no. Not all of the options will have a diagram, but most of them do. So you can use that as a reference point. The other ones are generally fairly intuitive, like fuller chest and stronger chest. Jacket front back balance tells you how much fabric is shifted from the half front to the half back. Lowering the back collar to prevent collar roll. Again, doesn't have a picture, but does have a brief description. The main way to work this, like I said, is just hit the drop down menu and choose the one that most accurately reflects the picture and the client's posture, or if you have a stronger understanding of the numbers itself, you can check for the formulas on the right side. Not all of these are mandatory. If you don't feel like any of them are relevant to the customer, you can leave them blank. I will go through each one individually briefly to kind of give an explanation of how they all work. So front shoulder, as I described, is, and as described in the picture, is the position of the front shoulder relative to the body weight of the torso. So someone with a very forward front shoulder may need less fabric in the front side of their jacket than the back. Left and right shoulder is the left and right shoulder slopes. Generally, these two, you want them to be mostly the same. However, there are some clients who have asymmetrical shoulders. You can indicate that here. Stomach section is for people with sway backs or concave low back posture, thereby making their stomach prominent on a jacket. So it's not necessarily for somebody who's pot-bellied, but it's for somebody who has a sway back, thereby pushing the stomach forward. So the way you work this is choosing between just these three, prominent 1.5, and prominent 2.0, or normal. Anything with a T in front of it does not apply, so don't choose those ones. You're using this as a scale for normal means no sway back, prominent 1 to prominent 1.5, prominent 2.0 is slight, moderate, and severe sway back. Back functions similarly to front shoulder. It's about the overall posture. It's stooped or erect, forward or back, and it works on a scale. So backward 1.0 is very erect, very stood up tall to the point where they're probably past parallel, or perpendicular to the ground rather, and then all the way up to very stooped. For seat, it's a matter of fabric distribution to the front and back of the seat of the trouser. So someone with a prominent seat will have significantly more fabric on the back panel than the front panel of the seat area of the trouser. Again, avoid the ones with T's in front of them. Only choose normal, prominent, flat, or low. Waist height, as you can see in the picture, it has to do with the front waist and back waist height. Typically, somebody who wears their trousers lower is going to have a low waist. Someone who wears their trousers higher will have a high waist. People with bigger stomachs, typically, unless they wear their trouser up on their natural waist, will have a low waist height. It goes from high 4 all the way to low 5, and this is a scale, so you can choose anything in the middle. Most people fall within the 2s, so high 2 to low 2. Body shape is for your own reference and does not need to be selected. I typically leave that blank. You can for your information, O is for someone who is more round, H is for an average shape, Y is for a trim person with big shoulders, and X is for a more athletically built person, big shoulders, big legs, and a tighter waist. Full chest is as it sounds. If they have a big chest, this option applies a lapel dart underneath the lapel to help with bowing. It sort of rounds the top front chest to more appropriately fit people who have big chests. Jacket front back balance shifts fabric from the half front to the half back of the jacket. So for people with big shoulder blades or with a little bit of a humpback or with small front chests, or small chests I should say, might want to have fabric shifted from the front panel to the back. Lower back collar is for people with typically with forward shoulders or with a little bit of a humpback. You'll notice there's collar roll. Is a word for it, or just a little bit of bunching of fabric underneath the collar band. So this serves to remove the fabric from there to prevent bunching of fabric. Left and right padding are for the shoulder. By default, if you leave this blank, it'll be half an inch or 1.2 centimeters. If you wanted to make these different, so if someone has a very sloped right shoulder and a less sloped left shoulder, then you might want to add more padding to the right shoulder to make them symmetrical. So you can do that here. Again, default, which is blank, is half an inch. Humpback, normal, slight, moderate, or serious. Again, don't choose the one with the T in front of it. Prominent front shoulder. Prominent front shoulder is a unique one. It does explain here what it is. Basically, if you have a forward front shoulder and a backward back, then you need to choose the prominent front shoulder. These two things conflict with one another if one is backward and one is forward. If that is the case, you need to choose prominent front shoulder. If you don't want this applied, just leave it blank. Neck gap does not apply. Anything with a T in front of it we don't use. And then prominent shoulder blade is as it sounds. If someone has a big shoulder blades or a big gap in between their shoulder blades, then choose the prominent shoulder blade option. It adds fabric to the half chest or redistributes fabric to the half chest, or half back instead of from the half chest. That is all for the posture section. Again, if you forget anything, you can reference this video, or you can ask for explanations via email, or you can also reference the pictures or the diagrams here.